Mike Huckabee is a man who was the governor of Arkansas, the same state where Bill Clinton was governor and made his name before becoming president back in the 1990s. He then went on to become a pretty famous host on Fox News, pretty dab hand playing the bass guitar as well on that show, Huckabee, their primetime weekend show that used to do incredibly well here. He's run for president twice, and we had the chance to talk to him in New York. And I'm pleased to say that former Governor Mike Huckabee joins us now from New York. Governor, what a thrill to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to Australian TV.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. Great to be with you today.
Now, you've had an extraordinary life. You're living an extraordinary life, but I wanted to ask about the two presidential campaigns first. Obviously, it's inspiring to see all of those people all over the country. It's good to talk about a cause. It's great to be part of those debates. But just how exhausting is the process of on and off planes? What is the physical toll like when you decide to run for president?
Well, it's an incredibly intense experience, but I have to tell you it's exhilarating. One lives primarily on adrenaline. There's very little sleep involved. It's a constant state of motion. Anyone who's ever campaigns would tell you that campaigns are fueled by hot Cokes and cold pizza rather than the other way around, and that's probably the way it is. Leftover pizza, grab a Coca-Cola somewhere and do the best you can. But it's also an incredible experience to meet people from all over the country, from all walks of life, and be able to find out what Americans are thinking on a given day. It kind of renews one's faith in the process. The process can be ugly, mean, vicious, but the people of America can be refreshing. And I think that's the kind of the paradox of running for public office in the country.
Is it the nature of running for public office that with every election, with every electoral cycle, be it 2 years in the Congress, 4 years for governor or for president, that process gets tougher and tougher? It gets more and more brutal, that there's almost no skin left on the knuckles now, and it's a bare knuckle brawl every single time, and it gets nastier every time. Is this just a nature of the prize?
I think it is. I do believe social media has made it more difficult. People are willing to be more vicious because they can do it anonymously. They can hide behind some cheap little pseudonym and never be held accountable for the things they say to other human beings. I think those of us who run for office, we expect it to be rough, and we know we're going to get bruised up. I love your expression of bare knuckles, because that's really what it is. But we expect there to be some sense of sportsmanship involved. In today's political environment in America, there's very little sportsmanship. It's just the worst instincts played out on the field. And it's destructive to the process. More and more people refuse to get involved in running for office because they don't want to put their families through it. They don't want to be accused of things that are ridiculous. What we're seeing with even Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh being played out right now, he didn't even run for office. He's just appointed. But these unfounded attacks on a person's character that date back to 30 years ago with nobody on the record saying they actually can say they saw or observed anything, that's why it's almost impossible to be able to survive this environment anymore.
Well, and even the person who did come forward and make allegations, one of her friends was on television this week saying that she was aware that some of the inconsistencies in the story, and she was essentially pressured into the process because they don't care about the people whose lives are defined by these fights. They only care about getting a win at the end of the week for their team. And this is what's interesting. Where, look, I mean, we all can dream of that better world, but what do you think can be done to avoid politics in America, and eventually, because we all follow the American example in places like Australia, of that bare-knuckle fight that, to be honest, sometimes resembles mob families where anything's up for grabs. You can go as hard as possible. Is there any chance of that process changing? And do you have any ideas of how to change that process? Or is the truth that, in a gang war, you've just got to arm up. You've got to have more tools than the other guy?
Well, I think there's one other alternative, and I'm not sure we can get there. it's very difficult to take legal action against someone who defames you. And we ought to make it easier, quite frankly. If somebody says something that is truly libelous and malicious, the standard of being able to take that person to court and to make them stand up and be held accountable for the things that they said is very difficult if you're a public figure and you're the one being attacked. I think that we've got to revisit that and make it so that if I'm attacked and someone says that I've done something that is criminal, that I've stolen, that I've cheated, that I have murdered somebody, I've committed a sexual assault, and there's no proof of it, no even valid accusation of it, I ought to be able to say to the person who said that, I'll see you in court. I'll take you to court. You'll have to pay and apologize publicly and admit you had no basis for that. If more people had to stand up to the things they say and be held responsible and accountable, I think it would stop most of it. I mean, a politician gets held accountable. We're constantly checked on our facts and whether or not what we said is true. And if it's not true, then, you know, we get the daylights beaten out of us and we can lose an election. But the person who sits behind a computer screen, types out the most vicious, horrible things, or can just whisper them or say them, never have to even be named. They can be the unnamed source in the news story. And they can destroy a person and that person's family. And it shouldn't be that would happen like that. We've got to hold people accountable, or it'll only get worse if we don't.
Well, that's a good point, because unless you're able to strike back against a false claim, then the ghost of Google is able to sort of follow you around with the most vicious things about you. And again, you know, for the politicians or even the media figures who sometimes get involved in this stuff, that's fine. They keep rolling on. But for the people who sort of burn across the national stage, often not even because they want to, that stuff's around forever. I wanted to ask you, sir, as a governor, as a former presidential candidate and an eminent American, about Australia. This is a celebration of Australia that's about to happen here in the next couple of days. There's no greater honour than to have the treatment that our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, is about to receive on the behalf of our country, from your President, and on the behalf of your country. What do you know about Australia, and what do you think is special about the mateship between our two countries?
Well, what I know is that I want to visit there. I've been wanting to visit Australia for a long time, and one of these days I'm going to do it. It's a long trip. I want to be able to do it when I can spend a significant amount of time. Everything I know about Australia is that it is not only a magnificently beautiful, picturesque country, but that its people are some of the most hospitable, kind, and delightful people on planet Earth. I also think the United States and Australia have a great relationship. We ought to. We both are countries that allow people to have a level of freedom that most people in the world simply don't enjoy. We take our politics seriously, but hopefully we don't take ourselves always too seriously. I would love to come. I hope I get that opportunity, and I hope I get it very soon.
Well, we look forward to it. You'll be welcomed with open arms. There are plenty of people who are massive fans and are very excited by the mere prospect of you having a chat on Australian television. So to be able to see you in the flesh would be magnificent. Final question is to the people that are watching us right now who are conservative voters, traditional people, sometimes a little more socially conservative than I might be on TV. But what do you want to say to them about why it's important to keep the faith, why it's important to keep fighting for an Australia that resembles the one that our parents fought for and their parents helped build?
Well, freedom is the most important single thing that a human being is able to possess. And freedom is something that can be lost if we don't guard it preciously. That's why I believe that the economic freedom to live where I want, have the vocation I desire, take the risk, and also reap the rewards is a part of the economic freedom. But the personal freedom, to be able to have freedom of speech, freedom of association, those are valuable things to a human soul. I would like to think that people would vote for those policies and those politicians that will most protect their sense of personal freedom and liberty, because that's something that is to be cherished and, if lost, probably never regained.
Mike Huckabee, you're a class act. I really appreciate the conversation, and I look forward to showing you around Australia anytime you want to do that ridiculously long flight.
I would love to do it, Paul. Thank you so much. Great to be with you.